Tired of getting your ass kicked by bandits? Or do you just want to win the Rattay tournament? So my dear viewers, here is my guide in getting better at Melee and KCD. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do consider. It will help me a lot. So now, let's get on with the video. It is noteworthy to talk about the potential armor types that you might encounter in the game, as for some enemies are kitted in a way that their faces are exposed. Having exposed parts means parts that you, the player, may exploit, as for striking these parts would mean a guaranteed damage. However, enemies might be kitted in a way that almost no part of them is exposed in any way. So let's talk about the different armor types that you might encounter before I give you any advice on fighting enemies. The guardhouse in Pribyslavitz can act as a way for me to explain the armor your enemies may potentially have. There are 4 types based on the guardhouse in Pribyslavitz. That will include the following: no armor, basic armor, good armor, and plate armor. No armor generally means enemies that are wearing almost no protective equipment. Normally, you'd encounter enemies like this with bandits. Then there's basic armor. You'll encounter this almost everywhere in KCD. So treat this as the standard for most enemies in the game. Now, there's good armor. This armor type is usually what most of the gods in the game wear. This is also usually the type of armor that humans wear. It's basically reserved for well-equipped enemies, just like in the Rattay tournament. Then finally, we have plate armor. Usually enemies like robber barons or human captains wear this type of armor. This type of armor has the entire body covered with plate armor and would most certainly give the player a hard time dealing any form of damage. Duels in KCD are unique due to the lock-in mechanic. Your camera locks onto enemies. There's a lot of mixed opinion on this mechanic, so let's ignore that star for now. Another unique gimmick the game has is Master Striking. It's a mechanic that allows players to block while striking the enemy. It's a good defensive move that certainly is qualified to be called overpowered. Now, make sure you have unlocked Master Striking with Captain Bernard. Once you have that unlocked, let's go back to Pribyslavitz for a demonstration. Now, remember what I told you about the Master Strike? The downside of having such mechanics in the game is that enemies can also perform Master Strikes, striking the player while they perform a perfect block. This is problematic since this would break your chain strikes, or it would leave you open for another attack. To counter this, I want you to take note of something I like to call guaranteed hits. I named it this way as it is a strike that the NPCs can't block or perform a Master Strike on. Let me explain. After playing the game for a while, I've noticed that some moves would lead to guaranteed hits. One way of getting the so-called guaranteed hits is to win clinches. Let's assume that you already have the Clinch Master perk and you have enough strength stats to win clinches. After winning a clinch, your enemy gets a stagger animation. This leaves a small opening that you can swing or lung at. If you're using a long sword or short sword, I recommend lunging as the point of the blade is for stabbing.
The point of the blade is for stabbing. Try it a few times.
Any other weapon like a mace is good for swinging. Now, let me show you some clips of me getting guaranteed hits with the use of clinching. However, the opening is so short that there's still a chance that you get Master Striked if you perform your attack a millisecond too late. And so another method to get a guaranteed hit: Master Striking. I think everyone here already knows this. After Master Striking, the enemy will be exposed to another attack much longer than winning a clinch, as you can see here. However, I know what you're thinking. Getting a Master Strike on an enemy can be difficult, as some attacks that enemies perform aren't Master Strikeable. Well, I'll teach you a method where you can always guarantee a Master Strike on your opponent. If enemies sprint towards you, or even just jog towards you, their tendency is to strike you immediately once they catch up. But this lunge attack that the enemy performs is actually Master Strikeable. One method I do is just run to the corners of a fighting pen, then turn around. then master strike the enemy. This always guarantees a hit. If you want to see more of this guaranteed hits I'm talking about, here's a video of me beating Captain Bernard with no armor. In the video I performed the moves that I'm preaching. This is a subject difficult to touch on, due to the lock-in mechanics of the game. It is difficult fighting multiple enemies at once. You have to resolve to just walk backwards and hope that you can open them up to strikes. Well, here's my tip. This will not be as detailed as the tips I give in dueling, but it helps a lot. The game allows you to fast travel while holding pole arms. This is good as pole arms give a certain edge when fighting multiple enemies at once. So one suggestion I have to players who keep on losing to multiple bandits is to always travel with a pole arm. Now, let's assume that you can't have a pole arm due to having no clue where to get one. There's a method that I can suggest. And for my frequent viewers, I think all of you know what I'm going to say. Just fight them the cavalry way, like a proper knight. There's literally a perk that's called Knight. Fighting multiple enemies at once is way easier with a horse. Just act as a shock cavalry and swing at them. And so there we have it. My extremely quick but still detailed guide on how to get better at Melee in KCD. I hope you learned something, even just a little on this video. Now, have a great day.